Okay, well, hello. I guess we are live. Let me just kill that music. All right. So hello everyone. So give me a sign of life if you can see this and if you can hear this. You can just type okay in the chat or in the comment box. Just to give me some reassurance that this is going out into the world. So apologies in advance if you see me reaching for a tissue. I've got a little bit of an allergy this morning, so we'll manage that. So this live is not quite my first rodeo. I did a series of lives at the beginning of last year, which I think was pretty successful. It led to my agency working with a number of new clients. So I figured it's time to come back and do this again. So as I said, if you're watching this, if you're hearing this, can you leave a comment so I can make sure that you're seeing and hearing me okay? I'll wait a couple of minutes and then we'll jump into it. Also, by the way, so where are you in the world? So if you're in Australia, which I imagine a lot of you are, can you type Australia in the chat, or just AUST? Or if you're in some other part of the world, like in I know we had a few people register from the UK and Ireland, and I think even North America. So if you could just let me know where you are, that would help me to read the room, so to speak. All right. Well, we might jump into it. So today, I'm going to be giving you the first of what I hope is a series of live videos. I'm calling this. Good. Thank you, Elspeth. I appreciate that. So I'm hoping that this is going to be the first of a series of lives, which I'm calling the digital marketing playbook for vision and hearing care practices. So I might just kill the ticker. Right. Yeah. Okay. So the topic today is word of mouth isn't enough to grow your practice. So I have been thinking about doing this presentation series for a while, and somebody in my circle told me that she recently went to see her optometrist in Australia, and I guess she must have got talking about marketing, and her optometrist said, well, we don't do marketing, we just like to rely on word of mouth to get our patients. And I thought, I have some thoughts about that. So I thought that was good motivation for me to create this first presentation in the series. So here's what you're going to be learning today. So I'm going to be talking about the 10 myths and mistakes about marketing that are probably holding back your practice. I'm going to talk about how word of mouth marketing actually works in 2026 and how it's changed over the years. I'm going to talk about 8 reasons why word of mouth marketing isn't enough, in my opinion, and 6 things that you can do to make your word of mouth marketing a active strategy rather than merely a passive one. So I'm going to start with some bold assumptions here as well. I'm assuming that you're here today watching because you are the owner or manager, or planning to become owner or manager of either an optometry practice, an audiology practice, or an ophthalmology, and I'll say that again, ophthalmology practice. Or maybe you're just here because you like talking about marketing. But just so to help me read the room, if you are associated with optometry, could you type an A in the chat box? If you are an audiologist or associated with audiology, can you type a B? If you're in ophthalmology, Can you type a C? And if you're in the other category, if you could type a D, that would also help me out. I'm also going to assume that you're here because you're actually interested in growing a practice. Now, I realize a lot of people maybe have like lifestyle businesses, um, and that's fine. More power to you if that's the case. But I think what I'm going to be talking about today is going to be mostly applicable to anyone who is actually looking to take steps to grow their business. Okay, thanks, Elspeth. So who am I? Well, so my name's Paul Salloway, in case you didn't know, and I've been in digital marketing and web design since 2008, so almost 20 years. But in the last few years, I've been focusing pretty much exclusively on helping people in the independent healthcare community. So in December 2022, I launched Optics Digital Marketing to exclusively help optometrists. I happened to know someone who was an optometrist, and through talking to him, I got to know about the industry, the business models, and the sort of challenges that you guys face. Since that time, we've helped like over 20 independent practices in Australia. Last year, we kind of organically grew into other sort of industry verticals, also helping now ophthalmologists and audiologists. And although our clients at the moment are in Australia, we're also open to working with clients in other parts of the world as well. So I have a small team that works with me now, and so we're happy to take on board more clients at the moment. All right. So I mentioned they work with optometrists, audiologists, and ophthalmologists. So you might be thinking to yourself, like, why those three? So what's the connection there? Well, there are actually a lot of similarities between those three, and so I just want to quickly mention what some of these are. So there are some similarities in the business models and challenges faced by them. So for a start, so patient acquisition and retention. So all three types of practices rely, somewhat heavily on referrals, whether that be from like GPs or other local healthcare professionals. So that's both both a good thing, but it can be potential vulnerability if if you're relying for a lot of your business from one source of referrals, then if that person retires or moves away or closes their practice or something, that's a problem. So for that reason, I think it makes sense to consider doing direct to the public marketing. So all three have natural recall cycles. So particularly optometry, you guys want to see your patients come back every year, if not sooner. Audiologists, they also have to see their patients to make sure their hearing aids are tuned in correctly and that sort of thing. Ophthalmologists, do co-management cycles, all of that. So particularly in the case of optometry and audiology practices, there's a product plus clinical service aspect to it. So maybe not so much ophthalmologists, but optometrists, your frames, your lenses, your coatings, all that's an important, part of your revenue stream, probably the major part. Definitely with audiologists, hearing aid sales, very important part of your business model. In all cases, in all three cases, patients, there's a high trust factor that's required. Patients are making trust-based decisions, so reputation is really critical. All three types of practices are geographically, anchored in the sense that you are local businesses. Now, I realize that what you might term as local depends a lot on what type of service we're talking about. Like I've got clients who are in the specialty contact lens space, so very well known for fitting scleral lenses, for example, and there are people who travel from all over the state to come and see them. Whereas in other cases, your realistic catchment area might be just the surrounding suburbs. So it kind of depends on what kind of service we're talking about, but there's still a local component to that. Regulatory compliance. So, in Australia, we have APRA. I think other parts of the world, there are similar types of, laws and regulations in place about what you can and can't do, particularly in advertising. And I think another commonality between all three types of clinics is that you have a bottleneck in the sense of, there's only so many appointment slots for your clinicians, and so that means that your growth needs to be managed. It's not so much about necessarily getting more patients, but getting the right mix of patients, because of time constraints. So just wanted to highlight those are some of the common things that we see across all of the clients that we work with. So if you're like me, you've probably before we go on, so does anyone have any questions? I should have mentioned that if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat. I'll try and answer that as we go, and also I'll give an opportunity at the end of this presentation if you want to save up your questions until then. So so I just want to say, if you're anything like me, you probably get multiple emails a week from people offering marketing services, and so it's probably natural to take some of that with a grain of salt. So I wanted to just share with you, before we get into the meat and potatoes of today, I just wanted to share with you some of the actual results that we've got through working with clients. So I have to redact the names of some of these for confidentiality reasons, of course, but this is one client that we've been working with in Sydney, doing some local SEO. You can see that we started in mid-2024, and today we've increased their local search traffic by 2.3 times, so more than doubled it. And this is, of course, actual local traffic. So we've kind of stripped out anyone who might be saying, Buenos Aires or Johannesburg or something. So it is actually relevant traffic. And I think more than that, it's the traffic that we've targeted for them is people who are interested in specifically the types of things that they do. So they are heavily into like myopia control, contact lenses, like specialist contact lenses for patients, that sort of thing. So there's also, it's not just the volume, but the quality of that traffic, I think, has improved in that time. Another client we work with, just since the middle of last year, actually, we've increased their local search traffic by 3 times. It's in Melbourne. We also do, in addition to local SEO and local search optimization, we do Google Ads management. So a client here, we took on their account around April last year, and in a 9-month period, we've taken their weekly Google ad conversions from about 5 to 10 per week to now we're typically averaging 25 to 30 conversions per week, with not much change in budget, because anyone can get more conversions if you just spend more. But as you can see from the average cost per action, so we've actually got the cost per conversion down to about half of what it was. So we're spending their money more efficiently than they were before. So one of our clients that we have is in Western Australia, Damon Ezekiel. He's the owner, principal of Ezekiel Eyes. So when we started working together a few years ago now, so originally they had some real issues with their website, going down and crashing and wasn't stable. So we did some work on improving the design and putting it into a more stable hosting environment, and they've had no trouble since then. He even volunteered that after we did that relaunch, they got a 60% plus increase in traffic. Another client we're working with on the Gold Coast, Paul Graham. He's the owner of Harmony Vision Care. So Harmony Vision Care is a little different from your typical optometrist. Um, they are um, they are focused on binocular vision dysfunction, vision therapy, um, children's optometry, that sort of thing. So they really wanted to see more of those type of patients, as Paul put it, the type of patients that the clinic was set up to manage. So we've been working with them for a bit more than a year now on their social media, particularly YouTube. So we do a monthly presentation or monthly interview on YouTube now, and he's said that they're noticing they're getting a better qualification of the people coming in. They're actually seeing more of the patients that they want to see. And this goes back to my point before about it's the mix that sometimes matters. So it's the mix of patients that you want to be serving that can have a real important effect on the success of your business. All right, so now that's out of the way. So let's start by talking about some of the myths that are perhaps holding you back. Okay, um, so one of the things I hear is our books are full. We don't need marketing. We don't need more patients. What we need is more time. So I think if that's the case, maybe as I just mentioned, so it comes back to the mix of patients that you're getting. Like maybe you need to tweak your marketing a little bit so you get more of the high margin, high value patients. So on our website in the blog section, there's an article I did with an optometrist in Adelaide. I'm going to probably butcher the pronunciation of his name, but I think his name's Robert Saylor or Seller. Anyway, so Robert, so he sort of when he was managing and when he owned his business, he said that he saw a lot of the franchise chains who were having lots of patients come in and like very short consultations, 20-25 minute consultations. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to spend more time with each patient. So he sort of repositioned his whole practice to get people who are willing to spend more, but he was able to serve them through longer consultations, more comprehensive assessments, that sort of thing. So I think that's one myth. Another one I hear is that paid ads don't work for us. Well, I think paid ads definitely work. I mean, Google wouldn't be in business otherwise, and Meta wouldn't be in business if they didn't. So I think probably what has happened, if that's the case, is maybe they weren't executed correctly. Maybe there was some problem in the way they were targeting, or the copy, or just the way they're set up. So Google has a way of spending your money in ways that aren't optimal. Let's put it that way. So it may come back to just the way that the campaigns were set up and managed. SEO is dead. So this is something that pops up now and again in my circles. Like people probably looking at things like Chat GPT and Claude and Perplexity, all of these AI models, and thinking, well, Google's dead. Well, I can tell you just from looking at the analytics, that's not the case. So all the clients that we deal with, so you can just see that Google is still the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And so I think it's going to take a long time before the bulk of consumer behavior changes away from what they're used to doing, which is Googling information. Now, of course, we have to also keep an eye on AI, and that's definitely going to change. I mean, I know myself when I'm looking for things, looking for vendors. Last year, for example, I was helping my parents put a new roof on their house, and I was often going to Chat GPT and asking it to recommend local vendors. So that is something to keep an eye on. But at the moment, at least, Google and Google Maps too, for that matter, are really important sources of business for most small businesses. Another myth, we tried it once and it didn't work. So I think patience is an important thing to have in any kind of marketing. So sometimes it just takes consistency and iteration. You don't always get it through the hoop the first time. Um, so patience is necessary, and consistency, I think, also counts for a lot. If you're, let's say, putting out a monthly YouTube series, so you shouldn't expect to get explosive results the first video that you publish. Often it's like that consistency. People see that you're turning up, and they can see that you're establishing a brand for yourself online. So I think that if you're disappointed with one marketing campaign, you should maybe think about trying again. The fifth one is Facebook is for old people and Facebook is only for young people. Now, both can't be true, of course, but I've heard both. I remember having a call with one potential client, and she said, "Oh, our boss doesn't want to run Facebook ads because we serve mainly seniors, and seniors aren't on Facebook." And I was thinking, well, really? Because that's not what I'm hearing. In fact, from what I read is that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook actually worried the other way, that's more and more only seniors using Facebook. Now, I don't think that's 100% true either. I think that Facebook and Instagram are such big platforms that really you can't go wrong with either. There's still like a huge demographic. Well, they serve all demographics, put it that way. Now, if you wanted to maybe more, if you wanted to get into another channel for targeting young people, you might want to think about Snapchat or TikTok or something like that. But I think that Facebook, Instagram, Meta, it's still the first place I would start, because they just have such a big online footprint. Does that make sense so far? So just type 1 in the chat if this is making sense. If you agree with any of the points I've made so far, could you just type a 1 for us? All right, so myth number 6 is our location does the marketing for us. So if you're in a shopping mall, for example, you might think that, well, because we've got our shop front out there, our signage, that's all that we need to do. But if you're like me, you might have read reports that everywhere a lot of retailers are concerned about shopping malls slowly sort of not dying, but they're not as popular as they were. I know just from my own observations, like there's a shopping center near my parents' place, and back in the day, you'd go there and it was bustling, but lately when I've been there, it's really quiet. And like, go to the food court, and half of the shops that were selling food there have closed. And the strange thing is it's a growing suburb. It's a busy neighborhood. So I think that foot traffic isn't the thing that was in the past. So you need to just be wary of that. Marketing is expensive. Yes, it can be if it's poorly executed. If you're spending money on, like, Google Ads, for example, on ad campaigns that are not set up correctly, then you can burn through money. But I think a well executed campaign should be able to show you ROI, getting money back, getting a good return on your investment. We're a healthcare practice. We shouldn't have to market ourselves. So I hear that sometimes as well. So maybe not in so many words, but I kind of get the sense that, well, we're healthcare professionals. We shouldn't be out there doing marketing. But I think if you are a practice owner, if you are any kind of small business person, then you do have to put on that marketing hat at some point and realize that businesses only survive by getting more customers, more patients. So that's so, like it or not, that's something that if you're a business owner, you have to consider. This is my favorite. So marketing is sleazy. So I think that if it feels that way, then you're probably doing it wrong. Because in my view, I think marketing done well is really nothing more than helping people find solutions to problems and improving their quality of life. So often that means helping people with problems that they didn't know they had. So I think particularly in healthcare, a lot of the marketing that you're going to be doing is educational. So you're letting people know about um, things that they should be getting checked. Like people should be going for hearing checks when they pass a certain point of time. People should be getting their eye pressure checked. Even people might not be aware that there are certain solutions available now, like in laser eye surgery. Like there are some um, new things available around presbyopia. Like Presbeyond is a new laser therapy, or new laser procedure that people can undergo if they want to ditch their reading glasses. So I think a lot of marketing comes back to just making people aware that there are solutions to problems which they either know they have or don't know. And the last one, and this is what we're talking about here today, is our patients just keep coming back. Word of mouth is enough. So I think word of mouth is great, but I like to think of it as more of the cherry on top. It's not a substitute for actually having a plan. So having some sort of marketing strategy in place gives you control over growth, if that's your objective. So how does word of mouth marketing actually work in 2026? So back in the day, like I'm going to say back 1996, maybe even 2006, you'd ask if you had a problem, you'd ask a friend for any recommendations. They'd suggest something. Maybe it's been a while since you've had an eye check. You'd ask a friend, they'd recommend a practice, you'd book it. That's it. That was the cycle. But I think now 2026 doesn't quite work that way anymore. So whether it's healthcare or whether it's some other problem you're having, like maybe some sort of home renovations, or you need a plumber or something, you ask a friend, they might give you a recommendation, but people go and do their due diligence online. So they'll check your website, they'll look at your social media presence, they'll read Google reviews. So there's some statistics I saw. 72% of patients prefer providers with a strong online presence. 56% of patients consult at least 3 different online sources when researching a provider. And I mentioned AI before. So according to this source, 26% of patients are now choosing providers based on AI tools like ChatGPT. So the old rules don't apply. I think it's not enough to have patients who are loyal and advocates for you. I think you've also got to back that up by having an adequate online presence. So word of mouth. Why isn't word of mouth marketing enough? And I think I've probably touched on a few of those reasons. So one is word of mouth is passive. It's unpredictable. So I like to make the analogy of like it's a bit like planting a garden and then just sitting back and praying for rain. So it might work. You might get too much rain when you don't need it. You might get drought another time, right? So it's very unpredictable. So what you would really like, I think, is to have like a tap, a hose, a faucet where you can sort of control that stream. So the same applies with any kind of business. Having a marketing plan in place means that you can sort of smooth out the bumps in the normal business cycle, get more patients when you need them, maybe dial back the marketing a little bit when you're going to be busy. So and this is important, particularly if like you're opening a new clinic or you're hiring an additional clinician, and you want to fill up capacity quickly. So this is where having some sort of an active plan in place is really going to be necessary, I think. Now, another problem with word of mouth marketing is patients only refer what they know. So if you're introducing some new therapy, like for example, So one of our clients, they recently introduced red light therapy for myopia control as part of, like, combination treatment for myopia. Um, and so this is kind of like a new thing. It's innovative. So how can you rely on your existing patients to recommend that? They don't know anything about it, so they're not going to be a reliable advocate for it. So if that's the case, then you need to really take the reins yourself, I think. Another problem is that new residents won't hear about you. So every suburb has ongoing population turnover. Um, new people move into the neighborhood. Typically, I think a lot of people move around the school holidays time. Um, and then they're sort of like getting to know the neighborhood and that sort of thing, but they haven't actually made a lot of local connections yet. I think a lot of parents sort of network through their kids going to school, but if they haven't really had that opportunity, if they're new to the neighborhood, then they're going to go online to find an optometrist if they need one, or if they're looking after an elderly parent, maybe their parent needs some sort of like hearing support, then they're going to go online as well. So every suburb has that turnover. In Australia recently, like some of the like places where I grew up, there are houses popping up everywhere like mushrooms. So it's crazy. And of course, on top of that, your patient base is going to naturally churn. Like people move away, people they pass away. They go through different stages of their life as they age. Like my neighbor, he might be in his 60s or 70s. I might not initially think of asking him if he can recommend any local optometrist for myopia control for my kids, right? He may know someone, but I don't automatically think of asking him, because he's at a different stage of life. So I think these are some of the challenges of having your patient base change over time. So another problem with word of mouth is that if you're not marketing, your competitors are. So while you're sitting back and waiting for referrals, your competitors are out there. They're shaping how potential patients think about their choices. Like think of like the big corporate chains. The corporate chains, they have big advertising budgets, so they're putting a particular message out there. And if you're not doing your own messaging, then that can shape the way that patients think about their choices to your detriment. So number 6, silent, dissatisfied patients. Now this is kind of like the dark flip side of word of mouth. Is that, like, I'm sure that probably 95, like for anyone watching right now, I'm sure that probably 95% plus of your patients very happy, very loyal, very satisfied. Um, they keep coming back again and again, year after year. We all know, though, that there are a small percentage of patients who are going to just have grievances. Maybe they've got some things going on in their life. Maybe they did have a genuinely bad experience for whatever one day. And so these people are going to maybe, like, they're going to talk about your practice, but not in a helpful way. So I was reading a statistic yesterday. I think it was like, on average, if you have a good experience with a business, you're likely to tell 4 to 6 people about it. But if you have a bad experience, you're likely to tell up to 15 people. So so it's like if I bought some tires for my car and they worked, well, I'm not going to tell many people about it, because they're supposed to work, right? That's what you expect. But if one of them had a blowout a week later, I'm going to tell everyone I know about it. So that's the problem. So I think that to counter those very few negative comments, you need to have something in place for reputation management. So there are systems that we've helped our clients put in place to get more reviews, and so I think that's something else that's necessary. So I talked about the fact that in healthcare, a lot of marketing is educational, and so if people don't know that they have a problem, they're not going to be looking for you. They're not going to know about what you do. They're not going to know about how you could make a difference in their life. So a lot of people just don't know about some of the reasons why they should get their eyes checked regularly. Um, so I had a family member say that she went to her optometrist, and there's all of this. She said there's all of this fancy equipment, but she doesn't know what any of it does, and so she doesn't really know how that practice can, or she's just not aware of all of the ways that practice could help her and make a difference in her eye health. So if people, it's the old unknown problem. If people don't know what they don't know, then they're not really looking for those solutions, and that's why education becomes important. And the last one is, not everyone likes talking about their medical experiences, and this is particularly the case with hearing. So, I mean, there's still, I think, a little bit of a stigma around hearing loss. So patients might not, want to get into conversations about their own hearing loss, and they might not want to get into a conversation about that. Same might be if you're in a profession where eyesight's really important. Let's say you're a driver or someone like that, where your vision is essential. You might not want to be open about the fact that you're facing some vision difficulties. So those are the 8 reasons I think that I believe that word of mouth marketing isn't enough, and that you do need to have a more active marketing plan in place. So does that make sense? Does that make sense what I've talked about so far? Do you agree with any of the points that I've mentioned? Maybe you've heard some of these yourself. Can you drop a 2? Can you type a 2 in the chat if what I've talked about so far makes sense? So I've talked about how having some kind of a strategy in place is I think important for every business, particularly healthcare. So that's not to say that word of mouth is bad, but I think a lot of people just sort of sit back and just wait for it to happen. But there are actually things that you can do to make your word of mouth strategy an active one rather than a passive one. So referral programs, and this is something that doesn't need to be too complicated. I know, like in e-commerce, for example, there are all sorts of referral and affiliate plans. But from what I've seen in healthcare with eye care, I think a lot of the patient booking systems, they're not really set up for that. So, but I think it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as, like, giving your patients a code or sending them an email and saying, look, share this with a friend, share this with a family member. If they present it to our staff when they come in, they'll get 10% off their second pair of glasses, or maybe some sort of gift like that. You figure it out. I'm sure that there are plenty of ways that you could creatively incentivize referrals. Review generation. I think this is really important. I think that Google reviews are really, really important part of every small independent eye care and hearing care practice. So I think it really pays to have some kind of a system in place to encourage your patients to leave a review, at least on Google. Facebook's a little bit trickier, and I'll leave it to you to research what you can and can't do under your local and relevant professional standards. So I'm not going to get into that today. We'll talk about that in another presentation, perhaps. But even if it's just like asking, even if you can get your staff trained to to ask patients to leave a review and explain, look, it would really help us out if you serve our local community, if you could drop a review on our Google business profile. You can even, what I've done with some clients is even like give them a QR code, that they can get laminated, put out the front in the reception. So your reception staff can just say, look, if you scan this code, that'll take you to the page where you can leave us a review. Just simple things like that really do help. I think creating shareable content. Okay, so like social media posts, email. Like I think every business should have a monthly newsletter. That's just my opinion. A lot of people seem to not want to take that advice, but I think that the email marketing is just so easy to do, such low cost and so effective that nearly all businesses should be doing it. And we'll probably talk more about that in a future one of these weekly episodes. But just having some sort of content that is easy for your patients to share. Like, for example, I saw a post the other day about I think it was uveitis, and so there's some talk recently about uveitis. People who get tattoos potentially are at risk of eye complications from that. So I don't have any ink myself. I'm scared of needles, but I've got a friend who seems to like getting tattoos. So when I saw that post, I immediately wanted to share it with him and say, look, you might want to get yourself, you might want to talk to your local optometrist or my optometrist before you get your next one, because it's something maybe to learn about. So yeah, create shareable content. I think recall and re-engagement campaigns. So I think most practices, most audiologists, most optometrists, they have systems in place to at least once a year remind their patients that they need to come back for a checkup. When you're doing that, why not also mention that, hey, if you know of anyone else, if there's anyone else in your family or circle of friends, why not ask them to just mention it to them as well? So that's just a very simple way that you could leverage those recall campaigns. So in this presentation, we've talked about word of mouth marketing through and referrals through your patients. But of course, there's also the professional network as well. So, I think that you're probably doing this already, but cultivating relationships with local GPs, pharmacists, that's going to be a way of getting those type of referrals. I think ophthalmologists are generally very good about this, doing like professional development sessions, that sort of thing. So building these kind of relationships with other healthcare professionals is obviously going to help. And the last point, this is a simple takeaway for today. So I'd like to give everyone some simple action point that they can take away from today. Start tracking how patients first heard about you and what made them book now. So you can do this in a formal way by having, some sort of like a online form that we've done this with some of our clients, is set up a form that that the patients can fill in the reception while they're waiting for their appointment or immediately after their appointment. And you can get some really insightful details about how people are actually finding out about you. And through that information, you can, obviously adjust your strategy, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that formal. It could be as simple as when you're in the room, when you're in the consultation room, just ask the question, like, how did you hear about us? Was it through Google? Was it through social media? Was it through a friend? Was it like your local GP? So I think that getting a sense of those sort of things is going to be really helpful. So does anyone have any questions at this point? So I think we're just about to wrap up. If you've got a question, I think now is a good time to put it into the chat box. If all of this makes sense, could you maybe drop a 3? Could you type a 3 into the chat window for me? So I think I've made the case that word of mouth marketing is great, but it's maybe not something that you should rely on to grow your clinic. So what then do you really need to scale? And I think that the answer is really it depends on where your business is right now. Um, so I think not every practice is going to start in the same place. So what I like to do and what my agency does is with any new client relationship, we like to start by doing a comprehensive digital audit, and that looks at like what are your strengths, what are you doing well at the moment, what's working for you, what are the weaknesses, what are your goals, and what are the gaps in your strategy, what are the things that we need to do in order to move you from where you are now to where you want to be. Sometimes that means like getting the foundation right. So like having a professional mobile optimized website that converts visitors, having a fully optimized Google business profile, having a consistent social media presence. So these are kind of like the low hanging fruit things that you really need to get in place before you take things further. Sometimes clients already are doing pretty well on those on in those respects. And if that's the case, we might be look at more be able to look at um, more advanced things with them. For example, like putting in place a reputation management system, getting those reviews coming in regularly, putting in place some kind of system that gets that happening. Conversion rate optimization. Are people coming to your website and then bouncing? There could be some sort of like friction in the booking process there that we need to address. Patient education, right? I already mentioned I'm a fan of email marketing, so having in place some kind of an email marketing list, having a way of collecting email addresses, um, all of that can help just keep your practice top of mind with your patients and really educate them about the value that you bring to the table. I mean, something as simple as like premium lenses. Um, if people don't know the benefits of paying more for good quality lenses, they're not going to ask for them. And when they do get to your practice, that conversation is going to take more time. Okay, if they're not um, pre-educated about those benefits. So stage two would be putting in place these type of systems. Stage three, and we get some clients who are there already. They've already got all these things happening. So they've got a good quality website, they've got a social media presence, they've got reputation systems in management. So they've got reputation management systems in place. So they've got all these things happening. So for those type of clients, we'd say, okay, maybe we can think about turning on the tap a bit more, and putting some budget into that machine that's already proven to be working, and talk about doing Google ads maybe for high intent local searches, meta ads, Facebook, Instagram ads to build the awareness, maybe retargeting if you're retargeting people who are interested in frames, for example, retargeting people who are interested in other types of products. And maybe even we can explore some of these blue ocean opportunities, like that could be YouTube, could be community sponsorships, influencer partnerships. So I'm not talking about like Kardashians here, but we have clients who are sponsors of the local football team, and in fact, they're sponsors of local players in the local football team, and so it's in that sense they are micro influencers. Anytime you can get your name associated with someone in the community like that's helpful. Podcast advertising. So this is something that we've been doing with one of our clients recently, and it's working really well. And so I look forward to sharing more of this with you very soon. So basically, if I've made the case that word of mouth marketing isn't enough, and if you do want to put in place some sort of an active strategy for your marketing, for your optometry practice, for your audiology practice, for your ophthalmology practice, then I would like to say get in touch. We can just have a quick chat on Zoom, 15 minutes, talk about where you're at, find out if it would be a good fit for us to work together. Um, no obligations whatsoever. If it sounds like that you would benefit from having some help with your digital marketing, then as I mentioned, we'd probably start by doing a comprehensive digital audit. What you get from that is an actual report, like a multi-page PDF report, which lays out exactly where you are now, what your goals are, what the gap is that we have to bridge in order to get you where you want to go. And I say to clients, look, we can do everything in this report, but if you want to just take the report and give it to some other marketing vendor, that's completely fine as well. You can do that as well. So, but I think having that sort of roadmap in place just gives clarity and structure, and just gives you a plan of what needs to be done, rather than throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks. So so if you want to reach out, then you can do that through my agency's website. You can contact me through direct message on LinkedIn, or you can email me directly. So you can watch the replay of this presentation either on LinkedIn or YouTube. Hopefully, it's getting saved on YouTube. I'll be very happy to have a chat with anyone who thinks that they need some support. So before we finish today, last opportunity, guys. If you've got a question, can you pop it in the chat? If not, I'll let you get on with your day. All right. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching today. I hope you got some value out of it. I'm planning to go live again same time next week. What I'm going to talk about, what I'm planning to talk about, is what is a patient actually worth. I think this is something that's worth digging into, because I think a lot of businesses undervalue the lifetime value of every new patient, every new customer that they get in, and as a result of that, they tend to underinvest in their marketing. So I've got an article that's coming out in My Vision. I think might be next month, My Vision magazine, where I talk about this, but I'd also like to discuss it with you in our live presentation next week. All right, so so until then, have a good week, everyone.